First of all, thanks a lot for your time and for helping with this small project.
Yeah, no worries. I've been watching some of the videos. It's been pretty cool. Pretty cool
Oh,
to watch.
fantastic. Thank you. Thanks a lot. The first question is, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? How long have you been playing? How often you play, let's say, every week? What's your favorite weapon?
Yeah, I've been playing since I got the game maybe a week or two after it released. I think about a week after it released. I've been playing since then, so since early November 2020, which feels like, wow, when you say it like that, it's a long time ago. I used to play every single day, 2+ hours a day, but recently it's died down a bit, mainly because I'm, doing other stuff and doing lots of like organizing competitive and stuff like that. And I also fell out of love a bit for the game, I think. But with all the new changes that are going to be coming very soon, I think it's going to be really exciting again. Yeah, so I've been playing for almost 18 months now, I guess. Yeah.
Hmm. And
What
in
was the
terms of
other
the
part of the question?
favorite weapon, do you prefer something or do you just play with whatever you find on the
Pretty
map?
versatile, to be honest. There's not necessarily a favorite. I mean, obviously the AK, I think everyone loves. The one weapon I'd say I like that most players don't give much sort of respect to is the MK18. I tend to use the MK18 in competitive quite a bit. I think it's good over a longer distance than the AK. It's more accurate. And when you combine it with, Danov and Patia's snipers, it's quite effective, to be honest, with finishing kills or dealing that little bit of extra damage. Yeah, it's quite good. So MK18 would be the one, it's not my favorite gun, but it's the one gun that I use that not many people tend to use that I think is quite good. So
Interesting. How do you use MK18? Is it mostly two hands, one hand?
always two hands, always aim down sight. I mean, you can one hand it, and you can, hip fire it, but it's just not effective. But yeah, aim down sight, sort of stood up in a particular position. It's a good weapon because you can move at the same time as shooting it quite well. So you become a harder target to be shot at or to be hit, whilst you're still dealing damage to them. So yeah, two hands, aim down sight, always. And you should really be doing that with every weapon, I think. That maybe like, unless if there's no reticle that comes up when you aim down sight, then you can hip fire it, but otherwise you should be aiming sights.
Interesting, because some people compare MK18 with CX4, but I guess CX4 is good for peeking, right? It's like a lot of people use it with one hand, and you just said that
Yeah.
MK18 is mostly two-handed.
Yeah, the main difference is that the MK18, the second and third bullet that get fired will have recoil to them if you're shooting with one hand, and they're really hard to aim and predict, which is why you need to be two-handing it. Whereas with the CX, you can line up every shot because the recoil resets for every bullet, whereas the MK doesn't. So you'll hit the first bullet of the three, but you'll miss the second two, and that's just not really an effective way to be shooting at someone. Really, missing 2/3 of your shots is not really
Hmm.
great.
And when you shoot with both hands, do you pull it down a little bit when you start shooting, or like what's the technique, the most
It's
efficient way?
It's something I think about. I think about like, do I pull down on the recoil slightly? I think I do, but it's really difficult to say because it's just so natural. Um, like I've just been playing with the weapons for so long that I understand the recoil. I mean, even like the AK, like, I acknowledge that you have to pull down on the AK to control the recoil, but I've been playing for so long that it's just natural at this point that I understand how much I need to pull down in order to line up every shot. So yeah, I think I do, but it's not something I'm actively thinking about. It's just natural, really.
Nice, thank you. What's the last skill you've learned in the game, and maybe something you're working on right now, if there is one?
Um, the last skill I learned in the game. Well, given that I've just moved to PC, well, not PCVR, but like Oculus Link, and I'm playing on 120 hertz now and on better resolution. Getting used to little things like um, I always used to find that when you kill someone and their loot appears around in a circle, I would be sort of spamming my grip button to pick everything up. Whereas now, it's so responsive that I don't need to do that. If I click like twice on a weapon, then I'll pick up the weapon off the floor, drop my weapon, and then pick up the weapon that I just dropped again. Whereas on Quest, the response time is so slow that you can sort of double tap, and you'll only pick up the one weapon the one time. So getting used to that has been a bit strange. And like also, just like the DT reload is just a lot smoother. Drinking sodas at speed is very consistent on PCVR versus on Oculus. You can do it, but you have to sort of wait for the next soda to appear in your hand before you open it. Wait, it's not quite as like you can't just spam it, really really fast. So not so much like having to learn them. I mean, it's better that it's like this now, but it takes a little bit of getting used to, especially the picking up weapons thing, because keep accidentally picking up the weapon that I just dropped because I'm spamming the button because it's what I'm used to. So yeah, getting used to that. But a couple of weeks now, it's been good. Starting to get the hang of it.
Thank you. If you can think about yourself, maybe like 6 months ago or a year ago, as soon as you started playing for a pretty long time ago, what advice would you give to yourself? Maybe 3 things to do and 3 things to avoid.
I think the one skill that I've learned recently, well, not recently, but sort of in the past 6 to 8 months, let's say, is using builds to attack a position, to move forwards on a position. I think often you think about builds being defensive. When you're getting shot at, you place a build to stop getting shot at. But if you're trying to move forward as well towards someone, using those builds to sort of make a path forward, that means that it's harder to be shot at because you have this sort of extra barrier in front of you pretty much all the time as you're moving. So that's a really big one.
A quick question about that. Do you build in some specific pattern or formation, or is it just spam building while you're moving forward?
I mean, you kind of have to move forward at a bit of an angle, because I can place a build. Well, it's a bit hard to say, but I can place a build here, but I can't. I can go over this build now and build the next build here, but that means that I'm now jumping up over this thing and I'm quite exposed. So really, what you want to be doing is moving to this here, but moving to the side here. And now, if someone's over this direction, let's say on that sign, it's much harder to be shot at that way. If you're moving forward diagonally.
So maybe if you can go somewhere here, maybe.
Yeah.
So you mean like you build one panel in front of you, one on the side, like that, or?
Yeah, exactly. So if I'm moving forward, in that north direction, building across here like this, because you can move around these builds pretty easily. And then maybe, like changing your direction back to the other side, because it makes it a little bit harder to predict if you're moving in a slightly different direction. So yeah, it's a good way to again push forward onto someone without really getting shot too much. And also, now you're behind these walls. If someone's on the other factory building opposite us, they can't tell where I am from here all the way through to here. So they can break down this build just here, but I can quite easily be here now or here, anywhere, and it's really hard for them to tell where I'm going to be peeking from. I might peek out of here, might peek out of here or here. Yeah,
nice.
This makes it harder to tell where you are.
That's a very good tip, because I usually I've been thinking about doing the same thing, and I don't have a solution for myself. So that's a fantastic tip. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be like I've gone forward to the right every single one that I go forward. You could skip forward too, if you want to be a little bit more aggressive with it. It really just depends on the situation. But yeah, that's a big skill that I learned. Yeah, sort of in the last, I suppose, 6 months or something like that. I think obviously gun skill is really important, especially the DT in particular. being able to hit your reloads consistently, and knowing the timing, the speed at which you can shoot the DT without shooting too quickly. Because if you double click your trigger, the second shot won't fire yet, and then you'll have to wait for the to pull again. So getting that rhythm down is just really important in general. And what else?
Maybe some things. Yep, go on.
I think that it's an important thing to not just go with the meta, like what other players are using, and really understand what works for you, and also in a competitive setting, what works for your team. Because having 3 people running the AWP, the ARP, is not necessarily the best thing for a team. It depends on your team's play style, but it's just not very versatile as a team. So understanding where you can fit in within that. Like, I'm not the best sniper in the world. I used to be quite good with the Seiko, but I stopped. I used to be okay with the ARP, but I stopped. Danov and Patty are much better with those than I am. So it's more effective for me to be there with an MK or an AK, taking down builds, opening positions up for them, things like that. So, yeah, I think a lot of people, the same when weapons get nerfed, and, what did we have recently? Yeah, like the DT got nerfed recently, so the fire rate is a little bit slower now. Everyone thinks, the DT's rubbish now, we're going to be using the M10, everyone's going to be using the M10. And that's not always the case. And I think it's really important to try out all the weapons yourself, get a feel for them, and see what you feel best with or what you feel most effective with. There isn't, and we see that in competitive play. We don't really see a specific 3-weapon or 2-weapon loadout that every single person runs. There's a lot of different weapons that you'll see. And they're able to use every weapon differently, and some players are better with the ARP, and some players are better with the Seiko. Some are better with DT, some are really good with the AK, all sorts of things like that. So, yeah, not just following someone else because they're good with it, really trying to define what weapon is best for you. That's important. Does that answer? I forget.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice. Thanks a lot. That's super useful. When I talked to Danov, he said that, and I watched your videos during different competitive games. You move as a unit just fantastically well. So you must communicate and coordinate when you play together with your teammates. I don't know. What do you think is the most important when you play as a unit with other people?
Yeah, so there are 2 things. So I watched your video with Danov, and I thought it was pretty cool. Danov stole one of my sayings in that, by the way. So he was describing if there's 3 of you on a team, making sure that the nearest enemy is not closer to you than your teammates are to you. So the way I describe it is, imagine that there's a piece of string tying you to your 2 teammates. And then there is also a piece of string, there's a piece of string tying you to your 2 teammates, and that piece of string is however long the distance is between you and the enemy. So if there's 5 meters between you and the enemy, your teammates should not be more than 5 meters away from you. And what that means is that if you and I are split up and someone decides to push you, I am closer to you, so the moment he starts to push you, you can call out, they're pushing me, and I can be there quicker than that person can to support you. And now that guy's in a 2 versus 1, and he probably loses. So that's really, really important. I just wanted to sort of elaborate on what Dan was saying.
That's a brilliant idea. And a lot of people commented on that, saying that they never thought about kind of the distance this way, and it totally makes sense.
Yeah, unless there are exceptions to that if someone's going on a huge flank, but generally it's a general rule that you should make sure that but also not sticking on top of each other, because if you and I are stood right next to each other, it's very easy for people to get around us, and that's when you get surrounded, and that's when you lose. So it's making sure you're spread out, but not too spread out.
Interesting.
But going back to moving as a team, I think it's important that there's like someone on the team that's sort of communicating and focusing on the game as a larger sort of image, which is what I tend to do on our team. I'm constantly looking at the map to see where the next zone is. I will be looking at the timer at the bottom of the map to see how long we've got before we have to move. I'm constantly thinking about, okay, well, we're here. How do we get into the next zone, which is over there? What's the best route to take? Where are all the other teams on the map? Who's weak? Who should we push? Which way? Yeah, what's going to be the most effective way for us to move? Whilst they're focusing on the gunfight specifically, I'm thinking about like what's our next move from a macro level. But I think that more importantly than that is what I call like blind trust for your teammates, and it's something that is really difficult to. It takes time. I've been playing with Dan since the end of November 2020, so for almost since the game came out, basically for like almost 18 months, I've played almost exclusively with Dan. I think we've probably played around 3,500-4,000 pub games and probably in excess of 10,000 private lobby games together.
Wow.
I'd say like a crazy number of games. And what it means is that we have this absolute blind trust for each other. And the same with Patia. Patia joined the team a little bit later, but he's still been with us for 6 to 8 months now. But what it means is that if we're in a gunfight, everyone's calling out damage, is someone weak, this, that, and the other. But the moment that any one of our team calls out to push someone, you don't question it. You just push, or you just support them, whatever, happen. You don't question it. You don't think that's not the best move. None of that. You just follow it. And then you can discuss it afterwards. Dan, was that the best call? Should you have really called that push? Something like that. But you just have to like blindly trust them. And trust that they've sort of done the maths in their head to work out, are we going to win this fight? So that's, I think, really, really important. And it's something that does come with a lot of time played and a lot of respect for each other as teammates. So, yeah, that would be my number one.
That's very interesting. So does it also mean that if you call an action, you also track all the time what other people what other teammates do, just to avoid a situation when you call something and as a result of that, kind of, for example, Dan follows and he's immediately killed because he was in a bad position?
Yeah, so there's like the macro version of the game. So like, okay, the zone is over towards Summit. So okay, we're going to move along here and then we're going to cross the road. That's going to be our route in. When we're doing this, if I'm like, okay, guys, we need to rotate for zone now, and I start moving, then I'll be looking at my map and I'll be saying, Dan, you're not with us. Dan still stood on here shooting at some guy over by, I don't know, truck stop or somewhere. And I'm like, Dan, like, you need to be with us now. Like, come on, let's go. So on that sort of side of things, yeah, I'll keep an eye on them to make sure that they're, because Dan as well can really focus in, and that's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to focus in on this guy and kill this guy. But what that can mean is he sometimes forgets about, we actually have to move for the zone, and if we don't move now, we're gonna have a big problem in a couple of minutes time. So that's really, from a bigger perspective like that, yes. But if we're just in a 3 versus 3 gunfight, and Dan says, let's push now because Dan's, maybe dealt a headshot or like a 148 with an ARP or something like that, or he just feels like now's the right time. At that point, I won't be questioning anything. If Dan makes that call, I would just follow him, and I would just get as close to him as quickly as I can, and just follow whatever he does, however he wants to take it. If I want to go around or whatever like that, and there's no communication there. It's just happening. Being effective and trying to support your teammate. Yeah.
Nice, very interesting. Do you have specific roles in your team? Like, for example, you track the map, positioning, like strategic movement, and somebody else does something, some other bits of the coordination.
Yeah, I'd say the only two things really are, I suppose I feel more of a in-game leader type role, where, like I said, I'm looking at the game as a whole. A lot of people like joke about and call me like the satellite of the team, because I'm just constantly aware of where every team is on the map. From the moment that we drop out of our pod, I know where our nearest teams are, and I'm constantly listening to where the gunfights are going on, where people probably are, because it's not just the teams from our platform we have to worry about, it's the teams from the other platform who are on the other side of the map. Like, where are they, and where might they be going, and where might they run into us, based on where the zone is going. So I feel that sort of role, and sort of thinking about, what's our plan. Basically, I get us the placement points, they get us the kills points, kill and damage points. That's kind of how it works. And there have been times when we've won. The only reason we've won is because of the kills, and my rotations have been absolutely rubbish. But there have also been times when we've got no kills and no damage, but we place second because I'm just able to rotate around teams and slide through little gaps here and there. I think as a team we do some pretty, especially early game, we do some pretty sometimes crazy rotations just through the middle of the map, because no one's in the middle of the map, no one's in plains. You just walk through plains from foothills to outpost, and then you hold a position at outpost because that's where the game is going to end. There's not many teams that really do that, I think. So
nice. You mentioned at the beginning that you used to play much more often than you played recently. Was it because there was some change in the game, or just in general, kind of you didn't like the game that much?
I think that there was probably a few things. I would run Arc Leagues, which takes up a huge amount of my time. I mean, we have 200 teams now every single week playing competitively. We have a team of 30 staff that I'm responsible for. We have so much to do there. So I spend so much time doing that. I work as well, so I have a full-time job. I have a girlfriend who I have to spend time with. And the game was just... There's a lot of bugs, a lot of issues. My headset kept... we went through just before Christmas, there was an issue with Quest crashing. And then my headset overheats quite a bit, so I actually have the front part of my Quest is off. You can see the fan and the processor and everything. I'll send you a picture and maybe you can add it, but it's a bit funky. It stops it from overheating though, and when it overheats I drop down to 2 frames per second and it's completely unplayable. You can play, but not when you're playing at a high competitive level. It's just so infuriating. So I think, all of those bugs, and the game felt a little bit repetitive, and yeah, it just got a little bit old, and I wasn't enjoying it like I was. I wanted to enjoy it, but I just wasn't enjoying it. But with this new Metropolis stuff, yeah, looking forward to that. Been playing the playtest. I think we can talk about it now. So yeah, been playing that, and looks like lots of fun. It's going to be. Yeah, lots of bug fixes as well, which is important, and yeah, whole new area of the map, huge area of the map, biggest change we've seen yet. So
I'm so looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's going to be good fun for sure. Have you played any of the playtest?
Not yet. I watched a couple of videos, people playing. Yeah,
you should. Yeah, you're going to have fun. I think everyone's going to have fun. It's going to be really, really good.
Nice, that's amazing.
It's like a breath of fresh air, which I think is important. About time we have one.
Nice. And last question, when you play, do you play with randoms at all?
I don't too much. Dan and Patia do a lot. I certainly in the early days, I played Pop for the social aspect, which is why I spent so much time with Dan, because Dan and I just got along, and there were a few other people as well, Yeah Boy Johnny and Big Arm Matt. These are, they're not the best players, but they're just really nice people. I just really enjoyed playing with them. And so, yeah, I'd basically only really play if they were playing, because I didn't want to play with randoms. And that still stands today. Obviously, at the moment, I think, like I said to you, my comms are broken at the moment, so when I'm playing with Oculus Link, I can't hear anyone and I can't talk to anyone, which is a bit annoying, because I like to at least be able to call out, when someone's pushing or something like that. But yeah, I don't really play randoms too much. I should play more, but I just don't really enjoy it. Again, I think because I didn't enjoy the game too much, I definitely didn't enjoy playing alone. So yeah, I don't too much, but I was today.
I was going to ask, when you see other people playing, if there is any kind of underrated skill that people usually don't pay attention to, but from the side you see that only if they put more time on that, they would be much better. But as soon as you're not playing much with randoms, it's difficult to say. So maybe in this case, do you think, is there like in general any skill that people usually miss that is actually very important in the game?
I think, like Dan said, I think positioning in general is really important. Positioning and awareness. I think the number one thing, if you aren't doing it to sort of upgrade your setup, if you're just playing on a quest, is get some headphones. Get some good headphones. Don't play with Bluetooth, because apparently there's bugs and a bit of a delay. I have Sony headphones that I use, out and about with my phone, but I have a little 30 centimeter aux cable that plugs into my headset, plugs into my headphones, and so it just makes, like, you'll notice like the level in which you can hear footsteps around you and hear people approaching you is night and day. It's really, really crazy. I think that's really, really important. From a skill perspective, yeah, I'd just say positioning, to be honest with you. Being aware of where people are, who's moving around you, and trying to, pick your fights carefully, and not hiding in a corner, but just being smart about the fights that you take, and knowing when you have an advantage as well. If you've dealt more damage to them than they've dealt to you, you have the advantage, and that's when you should be thinking about, should I push this person to finish them?
Nice. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much for your time and for your help.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.